Okay, now we are getting into the commercial crops world, the cash crops world. Okay, what are cash crops? And you have cash crops like sugarcane, you have cash crops like tea and coffee, you have cash crops like cotton, right? These are also known as commercial crops. So they are primarily grown for sale, which is why cash crops or commercial crops. They are not for use by the grower and his family, right? They are sold in the open market. They're also called commercial crops. Sugarcane, cotton, tea and coffee are part of the cash crops in India. They provide raw material for the agro-based industry. Important point, yaad rakhna. They provide more money to the farmers because the investment is more, but the returns are also high. So in that sense, these 2 points are very important. Please underline them. Remember these 2 points. Now, in this video, we will focus on the sugarcane, and those of you who have studied the agro-based industry will find it easier to relate to this particular video because this is essentially an extension of what we studied in the agro-based industry. So these are the sugarcane, the way they are grown. I think this photograph is from Karnataka, if I'm not mistaken. Karnataka, South Karnataka, North Karnataka both grow a lot of sugarcane. The Bidar, Gulbarga districts and below in the Mysore, Mandya region. Now, it's a member of the grass family. It's a tall tropical variety as is visible in the photographs with hard, thick stems. Ganna to dekha hoga, and those of you who are from Tamil Nadu would know how it is used during the Pongal festival. It grows to a height of 3.5 meter or more. The sugar is stored in the stem. The sugar is stored in the stem and it yields sugar, good and khansari. Okay, all this we have already studied in the agro-based industries chapter, and it is second only to Brazil in terms of the production of sugarcane, right? It's essentially an Asian plant, but Brazil is the topmost. So whenever there is a drought in Brazil or whether there is a problem with the farming sector of sugarcane in Brazil, the Indian sugar stocks, they start doing much better. Okay, so that's how it plays out on the Indian stock market, right? So let's now look at what are the climatic conditions required to grow sugarcane, right? I hope these big photographs that I use help you understand and get a feel of how sugarcane cultivation is done or any other crop is cultivated in different parts of the country. That's the whole idea behind using these lovely big photographs. So they take about 10 to 18 months to mature, right? So in that sense, the gestation period is pretty long. It needs this kind of a temperature of 20 to 26 degrees. Frost can kill the sugarcane crop. So that's very important. Though it is grown to a large extent in UP, but primarily now the growth areas are Karnataka, Maharashtra and parts of South India. So frost is a big problem as far as sugarcane is concerned. So a short, cool, dry winter season during ripening and harvesting is ideal. 100 to 150 centimeter of rainfall is required. Water guzzler crop, it needs huge quantities of water, sunny weather during ripening, and the sucrose content is what decides how good the sugarcane crop produce is. So the sucrose content is the natural occurring sugar in plants. It decreases in case of heavy rainfall or rainfall deficiency. So you should not have heavy rainfall or low rainfall. It has to be absolutely perfect because it has a direct impact on the sucrose content in the stem of the plant. Sunny weather is needed during the ripening stage of the cane. So that's one of the reasons. In fact, if you remember in the UP, in the agro-based industries, we were talking about how the sucrose content is not great in the sugarcane grown in Uttar Pradesh. It could well be because of the climatic conditions out there in northern part of the country, right? Whereas Maharashtra, Karnataka, etc. are doing much better now. Now, what is the kind of soil that you need for growing sugarcane? It has to be a well-drained, rich alluvial, heavy loamy or lava soil. It is grown in Great Plains, that is Uttar Pradesh, black soils, that is the peninsular part, Maharashtra, parts of Telangana, Karnataka, brown or reddish loamy soil. It exhausts the fertility of soil. So this is very important. Important part, please remember this. And it needs manure and nitrogenous fertilizers to be added to the soil in order to ensure that there is enough fertilizer content in the soil for the growth of this sugarcane. Okay, then we will come to the methods of cultivation. Sowing is labor intensive. A lot of labor is required, but generally the sugarcane farmers are also not very poor farmers, right? Good irrigation is essential. As I said, it's a water guzzler kind of a crop. So that is something very important. It has to be kept weed free and it has to be irrigated well. And it is planted using 3 different methods. The first one is set method. Now in the set method, ये थोड़ा technical details इसको याद रखना पड़ेगा. The set method में होता क्या है? The new canes are planted by taking cuttings from old plants. So the old plant, what we saw in the photograph that we saw here, it will be cut, okay, and the same one will be planted as part of the set method. So once you put that, and those cuts are called the sets, S-E-T-T-S, and the buds sprout after a few days once they are in the ground on the soil, and they form new stalks, and 4 to 5 stalks can come from each cutting, and this sugarcane takes about 8 to 12 months to mature, right? That's the first part, which is the set method. The second one is the ratooning method. Okay, now during harvest what happens is sugarcane is cut but leaving a little bit behind in the soil itself. It's not cut completely from the roots. Okay, so the new shoots and ratoons, sugarcane cut leaving a bit of the stalk in the soil with roots. So from there new sprouts emerge because it is kind of taking the stuff from the soil where it has grown before. It's almost a bit like the rose, right? So the second or any successive crop that is obtained from the roots of the leftover, because the roots are going to be the same. The roots of the first crop are used for the second crop also. Okay, so that is called ratoon. So the second or any successive crop, it could be the third crop also or the fourth crop also, which is obtained from the roots of the first crop itself, is called the ratoon. However, what happens is that the disadvantage with something like this is that the yield from every successive ratoon, each crop is then called a ratoon. So the second ratoon's yield will be less than the yield of the first crop. The third ratoon's yield will be less than the yield of the second crop, and obviously the first one. So after 2 to 3 ratoons, the old roots are not economical because उन्होंने भी काफी सारा mileage दे दिया है, right? So then new plants, new sets must be planted, right? So what is the advantage of ratooning? So the advantage of ratooning is that you don't have to plant the crop again and again, right? And therefore it saves on a lot of money, it saves on a lot of labor, and the ratoon also matures faster. However, the disadvantage is that the yield of the thinner canes and lower sucrose content. The sugar content is also lower. So you would need to know the advantage of ratooning, the disadvantage of ratooning. This is an important question, so please keep that in mind. The third method is not something which is used very often, is by seeds. When sugarcane is planted using seeds, but mostly farmers don't use this kind of a method. It's either the set method or the ratooning method. Now, how is sugarcane planted, harvested and processed? So let's know all that. First of all, enough distance between rows for hoeing, weeding, irrigation and harvesting. This is important. It cannot be a very crowded, though बाहर से देखेंगे तो it looks like a major crowd out there. Now, hoeing is essentially a method of loosening the soil. So you need to keep that distance so that you are able to loosen the soil in between, right? The harvesting is done before the cane flowers. The frost can kill the crop, that I've already told you. Harvested between October and April. It's a long, depending on which part of the country you are, and it depending on how the crop, when you have planted the crop. So it's harvested anytime between October and April, right? Then the other important part is that it is cut by hand by knife. It should be cut close to the ground, and the maximum accumulation of sucrose is at the near the base of the stem. And depending on whether you want to go in for the set method or the ratooning method for the next crop, then processing, the canes are taken to the mills. Because it's important to process within 24 hours. If you do it only then you'll get the maximum sucrose content in the cane. So you need to, which is why if you read in the agro-based industries, I had explained about how it's important to have the sugar mills, the factories very close to the field, so that the time is not spent on transportation, because if you spend too much time on transportation, your sugar content will go down if you spend too much time in transporting the sugar cane yield to the factory. Only 1/3 of sugarcane produced is used to make sugar, chini. The rest is used for gur or khansari. Okay. So, and the byproducts, etc., we have read it in the agro-based industries chapter. Finally, let's learn about the distribution of sugarcane. One, of course, is the Satluj Ganga plain from Punjab to Bihar, essentially a lot of it in Uttar Pradesh. The black soil from Maharashtra down to Tamil Nadu. The coastal Andhra and the Krishna River Valley, the Krishna River part of it, Krishna district, Guntur district of Andhra Pradesh. And November and December, rain harms the crop in Tamil Nadu. And that's a problem when you're trying to grow sugarcane in the Kaveri Delta region, Tirunelveli, Tanjavur kind of districts. There, if you get this November, December rain which Tamil Nadu gets, that can be harmful for the sugarcane crop. What's the kind of soil? The fertile alluvium soil in North India. There is a higher yield per hectare in South India and a longer harvesting season, which is all what we have read in the agro-based industries chapter. The maritime climate, especially for Maharashtra, Karnataka, etc., and no winter frost and better irrigation. So, because of all these reasons, South and Peninsular India is able to do better as far as the sugarcane growth and production is concerned. I've also put a question also about what are the problems faced by sugarcane farmers, a bit of a repeat of what we have already studied in the agro-based industries. The distance between the fields and the factories, it's a soil exhausting crop, so cost of fertilizers increases the cost of production of the crop for the farmers. The cost of transport is another major factor. It's an annual crop, and in smaller areas, farmers are unable to grow any other crop. So you're depending entirely on sugarcane. And if it fails, it brings a lot of problem for the Ganna Kisan. So it makes them very single crop dependent, and there's a high input of irrigation because it's a water guzzling crop, and prices generally are fixed by the government. So you're depending essentially on the government to give whatever remunerative prices they give for the sugarcane crop. So that brings us to the end of the sugarcane crop. I hope this is clear. This is an important part of the agriculture chapter. Please look at the notes and try to make short notes of whatever little points that you need to be able to retain, remember and recall at the time of the examination. समझ में आ गया बाबू? Bye bye, tata. Chai, garam chai. So let's now talk about the world of tea. Tea tales, right? Chai garam on the railway station. Okay, so who doesn't like tea and who is not a tea drinker, right? You have to be either a tea drinker or a coffee drinker, right? So tea was discovered in China. It was discovered in Upper Assam in 1823 when the British were here, and the first English tea garden was established in Chabua in Upper Assam in 1837. It's just some factoids which I just thought would be of interest. In 1840, the Assam Tea Company began commercial production, and now tea is also grown in the Nilgiris, in Uttarakhand, Garhwal, etc. Right? So these are just important details. A person called Major Robert Bruce discovered in 1823 in Upper Assam, which is why Assam tea, Darjeeling tea, etc. is so famous. Okay, so let's look at the climatic conditions. This is what a tea gardens look like. Beautiful sight, right? They look beautiful. This is a photograph from Assam, right? So they look beautiful out there. Now, it's a shade-loving plant, right? I have spent time in the tea gardens of Assam. 24 to 30 degrees centigrade is the kind of temperature that is required. And what is good for tea is morning fog, heavy dew, and high humidity is good for the tea crop. So if you get a question as to what is good for the tea crop, a 2-mark question, please mention all the 3 reasons. And it needs abundant rainfall of about 150 centimeters. Okay, so these are the climatic conditions required. Please make short notes of all this so that you are able to retain it in whatever tabular form, arrow form, circle form, different kind of forms. which whatever works for you, you need to make it to be able to retain it. And don't expect to retain it immediately after reading it once or twice. You will need to revise it multiple times so that you don't get confused. Okay. Then you need soil, well-drained forest land rich in organic matter is obviously better for this one. No waterlogging, which is why it is grown on hill slopes, because waterlogging is bad for tea crop, which is why when it is grown on hill slopes, there won't be any waterlogging, water will flow away. So this is an important point. So if you get a question as to why is it grown on hill slopes, you can mention the waterlogging point, that it is bad for the tea crop, and because it is grown on hill slopes, there wouldn't be any issue of waterlogging. Then nitrogenous fertilizers like ammonium sulfate, etc., help increase the yield of the tea crop, right? The forest soils also have a lot of iron and humus. All of it will help the growth of the tea crop. Now let's look at the methods of cultivation. Now, one way of doing it is through seeds, high quality seeds sown in nurseries, and then the saplings are transplanted. Okay, so that is one way of growing these tea plants in the tea gardens of Assam, Darjeeling, Nilgiris, wherever. Okay, the second one is through cuttings, which is called clonal planting technique. Here also done in a nursery, and then it is the saplings are transplanted to the specific tea garden, right? So they are transplanted when they are about 20 centimeter tall, and you are able to kind of transplant it in a very organized manner so that there is enough distance between different shrubs. Let's look at the harvesting part. How does the harvesting of tea takes place? So you have all these baskets, right, in which they keep putting the tea leaves, and there is a particular way you need to pluck the tea. In fact, I have gone to the tea gardens even in Sri Lanka, and the way they do pluck the tea, etc., and of course they have different kind of flavors of tea, which is very different from the kind of tea that we kind of consume here. But tea is, you realize that it's a major industry in many different countries of India. So tea in that sense is a major unifying factor, right? So if you go to a Darjeeling, people would want to buy packets of Darjeeling because the Darjeeling tea is something very unique. So the pruning of bush starts about 2 years after the plantation, right? To maintain height and the diameter of plant limited to 1 meter. You need to keep pruning it, right? You don't allow it to grow wildly. And the leaves are picked every 10 days. What this lady is doing out here, what all these ladies are doing out here, right? And there are about 16 to 20 pickings in a year, right? So the leaves are picked every 10 days during the growing season, and it's done between April and November, and there are about 16 to 20 pickings in a year. The question is, how does the picking of the leaves help the plant? You know, because it encourages the growth of fresh leaves, and you get more fresh leaves which are shooting up out there. And how long does a tea shrub last? About 50 years, after which you need to restock it. So in that sense, it's a lambi race ka ghoda. Okay, it's a test match player. It's not a T20 player. Lambi race ka ghoda, 50 years tak, the same tea shrub can actually last and give good quality tea leaves. Okay, now this is a very skillful kind of a job. You and I cannot do it. You need a very specific kind of understanding of the tea leaf, the kind of texture of that leaf, which leaf should be plucked and which leaf should not be plucked. ऐसा नहीं है कि जो भी leaf देखा सबको उखाड़ के इसमें टोकरी में डाल दिया. No, you need to have an understanding and knowledge, which is why this kind of a job is a specialized job which has to be respected, because they know exactly what kind of leaf is at the right time for it to be plucked. Not a day more, not a day less. Understood? Now, it needs a lot of skill. It needs a lot of patience. It needs enormous amount of patience, and it's usually done by women because they are known to be better pickers, and the fact of the matter is that the contractors give them lower wages as compared to men, unfortunately. Now, 2 tender leaves and a bud shoot are plucked from each stem. That's how the style is. Okay, now let's look at the processing part. Now, the processing part, the first of course is the black tea, what we normally drink, the tea, jo chai hum peete hain. the black tea that we are talking about. Now, in the black tea, basically the leaves are dried, then they are crushed inside a machine, then they are fermented, and then they are taken with milk and sugar. Okay, that's how we normally make tea, don't we? Right? Usme tum adrak, ilaichi वगैरह डालो, that's अलग बात है. Okay. Now, what is the step first? First step is called withering. Okay. Now, this is again technical part, so just bear with me. The gathered leaves, जो भी leaves आपने collect की हैं, they are dried in the sun for a couple of days ताकि उसमें से moisture निकल जाए. निकाल दिया, that is called withering. Then we come to rolling. What is rolling? It is rolled between steel rollers to break the fibers of the leaves. Okay. Then the leaves are dried once again and then they are baked over charcoal, koila, in order to make the leaves red brown in color. Right? Okay. So it has got further kind of refined. Then we come to fermentation, which is the most important part. Now, fermentation is the chemical breakdown of a substance by bacteria or yeast. Okay. Now, what happens is that the leaves are allowed to ferment. Okay. And what happens is that when they're allowed to ferment, that reduces the amount of tannic acid in the tea leaves. Okay. Then the leaves are dried once again. They are roasted and dried in an oven until they become completely black in color, which is why Brook Bond, yeah, Three Roses, whatever chai you buy, if you see the color, it is absolutely dark brown or almost blackish in color. We are talking about this black tea, right? Then finally, the blending part where when there are tea tasters, blenders, they add a particular aroma because the Brook Bond tea will taste a little different from Three Roses or any other tea brand that you may be drinking, right? So that depends on the kind of aroma that particular brand will mix along with that in order to give a particular flavor depending on the brand. I hope this is clear. Little technical, isko yaad rakhna padega. Okay. Then there is green tea, oolong tea and brick tea. Whoever likes to drink the considered more healthy green tea drink. There is a friend of mine who always consumes green tea. So what is green tea? Now green tea is not fermented or dried in the sun. Okay. In ovens, after leaves are steamed and crushed in machines, it's consumed largely in China. That's where it has come from as far as India is concerned, right? The picked leaves are heated immediately by roasting them and then they are rolled. They remain green in color. They don't turn black in color. They're not burnt over charcoal, right? So they're highly flavored and stronger stimulants because of higher tannic acid content, and they're taken without milk, without sugar, along with boiling water, and it's considered quite a health drink out now. The third one is oolong tea, which is greenish brown in color, and it's partially dried and fermented leaves and high grade semi-fermented oolong tea is produced. It is shipped largely to the USA, and brick tea is an inferior quality tea where stems and tea dust are compressed into blocks of brick tea, and it's consumed largely in Russia and Tibet. Okay, so you just need to know about this. I frankly don't have much to explain. मेरे को ज़्यादा जानकारी भी नहीं है, honestly speaking. How does the distribution of tea take place? World's largest area under tea is in India, and India is the fourth largest exporter. Okay, about 28.3% of world production is done in India. Okay, of which Assam, Bengal, Tamil Nadu and Kerala are the four main states, right? Bengal because of Darjeeling, Tamil Nadu because of Nilgiris, Kerala is also a large producer, and Assam of course because of historical reasons, and it contributes about 53% of the total area and 51% of the tea produced, you know. So the Brahmaputra Valley area, the Surma Valley area, all of that actually contributes to a large part of the tea production as far as India is concerned, right? I hope this is clear. जो भी technical information है, please read it multiple times so that you are able to process it and retain it in your